be done.
Across the vast multiverse of Transformers, one name keeps resurfacing across all versions: Shockwave. I find it most interesting that Shockwave is rarely an enemy who stands in the front. Most of the time he operates from the shadows. He's not just Megatron's one-eyed scientist, he's cold and calculating, always 10 steps ahead of the others. In this video, we're diving deep into every major origin of Shockwave across the Transformers multiverse. From the classic Transformers era, where he stands as Cybertron's silent guardian, to the morally complex and politically charged world of IDW Transformers, all the way to modern interpretations like Transformers Cyberverse and Transformers EarthSpark. Each version reshapes who Shockwave is and what drives him.
Optimus!
We'll break down the key episodes, comics and films you need to know, and more importantly, explore how each version tweaks his origin and what makes him the true mastermind who reshapes Cybertron's future.
Cybertron shall remain as you leave it.
Generation 1 cartoon, 1984 to 1987. The 1984 G1 cartoon, Transformers, begins with the aftermath of a war. The war has gone on for too long, and Cybertron is exhausted. The endless conflict between Autobots and Decepticons has drained the planet of its energy reserves, pushing the Autobots to the brink of extinction. As Autobots like Bumblebee and Wheeljack scramble to gather whatever little energy remains, Optimus Prime and his team decide that they have to leave Cybertron. There's nothing left for them here. Their only hope is to venture into space and find new energy sources. Watching from the shadows, the Decepticons intercept this plan. Megatron, calculating and ruthless, isn't satisfied with just stopping the Autobots. This is where Shockwave enters the story. He assures Megatron that Cybertron shall remain exactly how Megatron will leave it. He shall guard and take care of Cybertron. In the G1 cartoon, Shockwave isn't the schemer yet. He's absolutely loyal towards Megatron, and he's devoid of emotions. When Megatron leaves Cybertron to chase the Autobots into space, he entrusts Shockwave with total control of the planet, and Shockwave accepts this task without any question. Determined to seize the energy for themselves, the Decepticons pursue the Autobots into space. A battle breaks out between the two factions aboard their spacecraft. During the chaos, both ships are pulled into Earth's gravity and crash. All this while, Shockwave stays behind, holding the line. Unlike others in the cartoon, Shockwave is constantly loyal. For 4 million years, the Transformers lie dormant, but Shockwave remains on Cybertron, off-screen for long stretches. He serves as a reminder that while the battle may shift to Earth, the war for Cybertron is never truly over. G1 Shockwave isn't the most complex version of the character. He's perhaps the most underdeveloped and passive version of himself. One with no ambitions nor any cunning, yet this version serves as the background for many other versions of Shockwave we're about to see. Marvel Comics, 1984 to 1993. The Marvel Comics start off with Shockwave observing Earth's television broadcasts, analysing human behaviour. As he watches their advertisements, he concludes that humans are primitive, weak, and intellectually inferior. To him, conquering Earth will be effortless. The Autobots have been completely defeated, their bodies left hanging lifeless inside the Ark. Shockwave now seems to be the leader of the Decepticons, and he announces that Megatron's leadership was ineffective. He tells Megatron that he was the one who killed all the Autobots. If Megatron had been in charge, then the Autobots would have won. Through a series of flashbacks, it is revealed that the Decepticons ambushed the Autobots expedition. Optimus Prime crashed on Earth, and for 4 million years, they remained dormant. Shockwave, who remained on Cybertron, travelled to Earth and defeated the Autobots. Megatron is weakened, and so he is forced to step aside as Shockwave assumes command. Under his leadership, the Decepticons plan to dismantle the fallen Autobots for spare parts, extract the creation matrix from Optimus Prime, and use it to create a new army powerful enough to conquer Earth and enslave humanity. Shockwave launches a devastating assault on a high-tech oil drilling platform owned by industrialist G.B. Blackrock. The facility is heavily armed, equipped with advanced defences like aerial units and heavy weaponry, but none of it proves effective against Shockwave's overwhelming power. With cold precision, he tears through the defences and successfully captures the platform, securing a major new energy source with the Decepticons. Shockwave's growing dominance begins to provoke tension within the Decepticon ranks, especially from Megatron. Still, recovering from earlier injuries, Megatron is furious at being sidelined and refuses to accept Shockwave's authority. When Shockwave returns and announces his successful conquest of the oil platform, Megatron snaps. In a burst of rage, he breaks free from his repair systems and launches a direct attack on Shockwave. blasting him across the landscape in a dramatic show of defiance. Megatron, still weakened, is no match for Shockwave at full strength. Despite Megatron's reputation as the most feared Decepticon leader, Shockwave easily regains control of the battle and defeats him. Yet, in a moment that perfectly defines his character, Shockwave chooses not to kill Megatron. Instead, he spares him, not out of mercy, but out of logic. To Shockwave, Megatron still has value as a tool, and destroying him now would be inefficient. Shockwave then returns to the Ark carrying Megatron's broken body, using him as a living warning to the other Decepticons. One by one, the remaining Decepticons fall in line, swearing loyalty to Shockwave's rule. Dreamwave Comics 2002 to 2005. Interestingly, Dreamwave Comics in their Transformers Generation 1 comic reshapes Shockwave's character and turns him into the master strategist we know him to be. The issue opens on the shores of Alaska, where Optimus Prime reflects on how the Autobots ended up in such a desperate situation. The Autobots were on a mission to recover a lost Autobot vessel, but the Decepticons ambushed them. In the chaos of battle, Optimus manages to gain the upper hand against Megatron, but Scourge appears and tells him that the war on Cybertron is over. Both the Autobots and Decepticons are dead. Suddenly, Scourge is attacked, and Shockwave appears, who declares himself to be the ruler of Cybertron, and says he's come to arrest them as they are now criminals of war. He tells them that the inhabitants of Cybertrons are no longer divided as Autobots and Decepticons, since that only resulted in war. He calls his rule the New World Order, and says any threat to the peace of Cybertron needs to be eliminated. Megatron and Optimus Prime are threats. Megatron attacks Shockwave on hearing this, and Shockwave orders the Cybertronians to kill both of them. He blasts Megatron. Grimlock charges in and saves Optimus Prime. Realising the battle is lost, Optimus orders a retreat. With the Autobots gone and Megatron down, the Decepticons are left leaderless and vulnerable, so Starscream and the remaining Decepticons surrender to Shockwave's authority. Optimus and Prowl reassess their strategy. They decide to split their forces. Prowl will remain behind on Earth with Hound, Cliffjumper, Trailbreaker and Mirage to monitor the situation, while Optimus leads the rest back to the Ark for repairs and to determine their next move. The captured Decepticons are loaded onto his ship to be taken back to Cybertron, where they will undergo re-education. Rumble and Frenzy are assigned to guard Megatron's damaged body, while Blitzwing remains behind with security team Dion, tasked with hunting down any remaining Autobots. Aboard Shockwave's ship, Megatron begins to regain consciousness, but before we can recover, Starscream opens the bay doors and ejects Megatron into the vacuum of space. IDW Comics 2005 to 2018. The IDW Transformers Spotlight comics puts the spotlight on individual characters in one-shot comics. 600,000 years before the present, during the height of the Autobot-Decepticon War, Shockwave concludes that the war will eventually drain Cybertron of energon, leading to planetary death. For survival, he initiated Project Regenesis. He doesn't tell anyone about it, not even Megatron. He stocked raw energy and sent it to other planets via missile-like warheads. His plan is to harvest and regulate those energy sources later. He also sent it to prehistoric Earth. Near the end of the Ice Age, Shockwave arrives on Earth to stabilize the volatile energon he planted. He knows he will be branded a traitor for his actions, but he's the one with the resources, so he will control the balance of power. Shockwave declares that he only serves one master, and that is pure logic. The Dinobots track him to Earth and attack Shockwave. Shockwave did not predict this. At most, he thought it would be Megatron who would attack him. Shockwave's logic fails, so he shuts down his higher reasoning functions and unleashes his primal rage. Just as Shockwave prepares to escape using the Dinobot's ship, the ship triggers a volcanic eruption. The explosion engulfs Shockwave and the Dinobots in molten lava, entombing them for millennia. Back on Cybertron, a suspicious Megatron sends Bludgeon to investigate Shockwave's disappearance. Now in 2005, human archaeologists uncover a massive purple metal hand, hinting at Shockwave's inevitable return. Now if we look at IDW Comics, we find Shockwave to be a more tragic figure. It reveals that Shockwave is not always the cold, emotionless scientist we know, but he used to be Senator Shockwave, a principled Cybertronian who believed deeply in justice and truth. Senator Shockwave was part of Cybertron's ruling body and a close associate of Orion Pax. Unlike many corrupt officials, he was genuinely committed to exposing the rot within the system. When Orion uncovered evidence of a massive conspiracy involving illegal experiments and political manipulation, Shockwave supported him, determined to bring those responsible to justice. The corrupt Senate could not allow the truth to surface, and Shockwave was captured and subjected to impurata, a brutal punishment that involved removing his head and hands and replacing them with functionless substitutes. More than just physical mutilation, it was meant to strip him of identity and autonomy. After impurata, Shockwave was handed over for further reconditioning, His memories, emotions, and moral framework were systematically erased and rewritten. Logic was elevated above all else, while empathy, compassion, and individuality were purged. It created the version of Shockwave we now know, cold, calculating, and utterly detached. Shockwave's obsession with logic is not natural, it is engineered, the result of deliberate psychological destruction. It reframes Shockwave not just as a villain, but as a victim of Cybertron's corruption. Transformers Animated 2007 to 2009. We've seen the logical version of Shockwave, but Transformers Animated gives us a version of Shockwave who is rooted in deception. This version of Shockwave is dangerous because he earns the trust of the Autobots and lives among his enemies, rewriting the fate of the battle from within. In the Transformers animated cartoon, we meet Long-Arm Prime, an Autobot bureaucrat who seems more concerned with rules and protocol than with war. He works under Ultra Magnus, interacts with other Autobots without raising suspicion, and blends into the background. Long-Arm isn't just another Autobot. He's revealed to be Shockwave, already embedded deep within Autobot Command, observing his enemies. Over the course of the series, Long-Arm appears just enough to establish credibility without drawing attention to himself. He's present in key moments, involved in decision-making, and positioned close to the Autobots' operations, but he's secretly serving Megatron. His loyalty towards Megatron isn't passive, he's actively shaping events from behind the scenes, feeding information, manipulating outcomes, and ensuring that the Decepticons always stay one step ahead. The best thing about this Shockwave is his patience, because he knows he's playing the long game. He never rushes, nor does he ever break character. He stays in the system to study the Autobots, understanding how they think and how they operate as a team. And he uses that knowledge to subtly guide them toward failure. By the time we reach Season 3, Episode 11, This Is Why I Hate Machines, unlike earlier appearances where his deception remains intact, here his true allegiance to the Decepticons is fully revealed. He is revealed to be a calculating spy carrying out Megatron's plan. When Ratchet and Fanzone take refuge in Cybertron's abandoned underground sectors, they are ambushed by Shockwave himself. Now openly acting as a Decepticon, he wields the stolen Magnus hammer and says that he needs access codes connected to Omega Supreme, and so he will need RC. Realising the danger, Ratchet rushes to protect RC, who's being held in a secured Autobot facility due to her fragmented memory. However, Shockwave tracks him there and launches a direct assault. The fight is quick, and Ratchet is incapacitated, and Shockwave successfully captures RC, escaping before anyone can stop him. Shockwave uses everything he's learned as Long-Arm to outmaneuver the Autobots, anticipating their responses and exploiting their weaknesses. He knows their protocols, their chain of command, and their decision-making patterns, and he turns all of it against them. Transformers Prime aligned continuity 2010 to 2013. Transformers Prime gives us the pure, unapologetic mad scientist version of Shockwave that is my absolute favourite. The episode begins with Ratchet successfully creating a stable form of synthetic energon to help solve the Autobots' dwindling energy reserves. Unlike natural energon, which is stable, synthetic energon is volatile, addictive, and dangerously unpredictable. It promises increased strength and power, but at a severe cost to the user's stability. After testing it on machinery, he becomes convinced it works. Ratchet decides to take a risk and inject it into himself. He becomes stronger, faster, and more efficient than ever before. Ratchet joins Optimus Prime and the team in battle, tearing through Decepticon forces with shocking ease. But the effects quickly begin to spiral. Ratchet's personality changes as he becomes aggressive, impatient, and increasingly reckless. He starts questioning Optimus's leadership, arguing that the Autobots should abandon restraint and eliminate the Decepticons outright instead of holding back. Things escalate further during a mission where Ratchet brutally interrogates a captured Decepticon miner using intimidation and excessive force. Optimus intervenes and orders Ratchet to be confined to base, but Ratchet refuses to stand down. He injects himself again and goes rogue, abandoning the team entirely. During the series, Shockwave demonstrates his expertise by experimenting on the Predacon clones, creating enhanced warriors. He uses synthetic energon and calculates dosage, monitors side effects, and exploits the substance as a strategic weapon rather than simply a boost to power. Transformers 2007. The Transformers 2007 live action is important to discuss because it sets the stage for Shockwave to storm onto the battlefield. What's interesting is that this film doesn't introduce Shockwave directly at all. Instead, it builds the world he will eventually walk into. The film opens with a reimagined origin of the Transformers conflict. At the center of this conflict is the EarthSpark, an ancient Cybertronian artifact that has been lost on Earth, and both Autobots and Decepticons are searching for it. Whoever controls it can create life and gain immense power, making it the ultimate prize in their war. This conflict is brought into the human world through Sam Witwicky, an ordinary teenager who unknowingly becomes connected to the EarthSpark's location through his ancestors' glasses. At the same time, the Decepticons begin their assault on Earth. The film opens with a devastating attack by Blackout on a US military base. Soon after, other Decepticons like Barricade begin hunting for clues, tracking down Sam as part of their mission to locate the EarthSpark. We're introduced to the Autobots through Optimus Prime, whose arrival is marked by one of the most iconic speeches in the franchise. As the plot progresses, the story converges on a hidden government organization called Sector 7, which has secretly been studying Megatron, frozen in ice beneath the Hoover Dam for decades. The EarthSpark is also hidden there, kept under tight security, but once the Decepticons discover its location, everything escalates rapidly. Megatron is reawakened, and his presence immediately shifts the balance of power. He's driven by domination and destruction. In this movie, the Decepticons operate with a level of coordination and lethality that feels very different from earlier versions, and it establishes the Decepticons as weapons of war. The final act of the film takes place in a massive city battle, where Autobots and Decepticons clash in full force, while humans struggle to survive in the crossfire. In the middle of this, Sam becomes crucial again, carrying the EarthSpark and ultimately using it to destroy Megatron, sacrificing the artifact to stop the Decepticons from gaining control over it. By the end, the Autobots secure a temporary victory, but it's clear the war is far from over. Megatron may be gone, and the EarthSpark destroyed, but the Decepticons are still out there. Even though Shockwave doesn't appear in Transformers, this film establishes the universe for him. When Shockwave is eventually introduced in Transformers Dark of the Moon, he doesn't need a long setup or deep explanation. Transformers Dark of the Moon 2011. Transformers Dark of the Moon is where Shockwave finally steps into the live action world. This version of Shockwave is a direct threat, and he is different from all the other versions we've witnessed so far. Before Shockwave appears, the film sets up a much larger conflict. The story ties the Transformers war to the space race, revealing that a Cybertronian ship called the Ark crashed on the moon decades ago. Hidden within it is Sentinel Prime, and technology capable of transporting entire planets. Megatron is weakened, but still scheming. He forms a secret alliance with Sentinel Prime to bring Cybertron to Earth and rebuild their world at humanity's expense. While this larger plan unfolds, the Autobots, led by Optimus Prime, initially believe they've gained an advantage by recovering Sentinel, but that hope is shattered when Sentinel betrays them, revealing his allegiance to Megatron and activating a plan to enslave humanity and rebuild Cybertron using Earth's resources. And in the middle of this escalating chaos, Shockwave arrives. His introduction is one of the most memorable in the entire Bayverse. The ground literally begins to collapse as a massive drilling creature, the Driller, bursts through the streets of Chicago. Buildings crumble, the city shakes, and from that destruction emerges Shockwave, riding the chaos. Visually, he's one of the most intimidating designs in the film series. Taller and bulkier, he is more imposing than other Decepticons, but his signature single glowing eye and an armed cannon make him instantly recognizable. Unlike other versions, this Shockwave doesn't speak much. Once deployed in Chicago, Shockwave becomes one of the most central enforcers of the Decepticon ambition. As Sentinel Prime's plan unfolds, pillars are activated across the city, opening space bridges that begin transporting Cybertron into Earth's orbit. The result is a full-scale invasion. Humans are rounded up, the city is turned into a war zone, and the Autobots are forced into a desperate resistance. Throughout the Chicago battle, Shockwave and his Driller tear through the environment, collapsing buildings and scattering both human and Autobot forces. He hunts down the Autobots as they attempt to regroup and counterattack. The Autobots, already outnumbered and outgunned, now have to deal with a relentless Shockwave. Shockwave doesn't get distracted and doesn't make mistakes. The Bayverse leans heavily into realism and military-style warfare, and Shockwave embodies that approach perfectly. He's a living weapon deployed at critical moments to ensure maximum impact. As the battle in Chicago intensifies, the Autobots begin to turn the tide. Human forces led by military teams coordinate with the Autobots to disrupt the Decepticon plan. Amid this chaos, Shockwave faces increasing resistance. Shockwave is finally taken down during the climax of the Chicago battle. It's not an easy victory, as it requires a lot of coordination, timing, and a concentrated effort to bring him down. I do enjoy the Bayverse movies, but this movie changes Shockwave's character and makes him feel like a war machine instead of a mad scientist, which I'm conflicted about.
Good luck, soldier.
Bumblebee Movie 2018. After the chaos and destruction of the Bayverse, Bumblebee 2018 resets the tone of the live-action Transformers universe, and it gives us one of the most visually satisfying versions of Shockwave ever put on screen. His role in the film is brief, but it leaves a strong impression, especially for fans who've been waiting to see a more faithful adaptation of the character. The film opens on Cybertron, a war-torn world in its final days. What I love about Bumblebee is that it feels like a tribute to the original Transformers cartoon, as the designs are more G1 inspired and the stakes are high. The Autobots are losing badly, and the Decepticons have taken control of most of the planet, while the remaining Autobot forces are in full retreat. Leading the Autobots is Optimus Prime, who is coordinating an evacuation. The plan is to send Autobots off-world to regroup and survive, while holding off the Decepticon assault for as long as possible. Among those escaping is Bumblebee, who's given a mission to travel to Earth and establish a safe base for future Autobot operations. But before he can fully carry out that mission, he's ambushed by Decepticons, and during the fight, he loses both his voice and much of his memory. And this is where Shockwave comes in. Unlike his Bayverse counterpart, the Bumblebee version of Shockwave leans heavily into his classic identity. His design is very recognizable with his single glowing eye and the arm-mounted cannon. During the Cybertron battle, Shockwave is shown as part of the Decepticon assault force, actively engaging in the destruction of Autobot resistance. While he doesn't dominate the sequence with extended screen time, every moment he appears feels deliberate. He isn't just a Decepticon fighting in the background, he stands out and unleashes powerful blasts from his arm cannon, cutting through the battlefield. He moves and fights with efficiency, and his every action feels calculated. The Cybertron sequence itself is fast-paced and intense, showing Autobots being overwhelmed and forced into retreat. Shockwave's role in this is subtle but important. He reinforces the idea that the Decepticons are a structured, powerful force with specialized warriors. While Megatron isn't front and center in the sequence, Shockwave helps fill that gap. Eventually, the Autobots manage to launch their escape. Bumblebee is sent to Earth, setting up the main story of the film, which shifts into a more grounded, character-driven narrative. He crash lands on Earth in the late 1980s, taking the form of a small yellow Volkswagen Beetle to stay hidden. The Cybertron war fades into the background. Cyberverse 2018 to 2021. Transformers Cyberverse brings back the version where Shockwave is a long-term strategist, a manipulator, and a scientist whose plans unfold with terrifying precision. We're introduced to one of the most important elements of the Autobot side, the Ark's advanced AI system, Teletron X. The episode primarily follows Bumblebee and Windblade, who decide to investigate an Autobot distress signal. Inside the silo, Bumblebee and Windblade uncover the source of it, Teletron X, a small but highly advanced robotic drone once designed to complement the main Ark computer, Teletron 1. Teletron X immediately identifies Bumblebee as an Ark crew member. The Autobots finally reach their ultimate goal, the long-lost starship Optimus Prime's Ark. The team celebrates when they uncover it, but Shockwave arrives with a full Decepticon force. They intend to destroy the Ark and its crew once and for all. A battle erupts, and Teletron X joins the fight too, helping to disrupt a Decepticon drone while assisting Bumblebee in combat. Shockwave initiates a volcanic eruption using a powerful magnetic disruptor mounted on his ship, hoping the lava will destroy the Ark and everyone inside. As fiery chaos erupts, Teletron X's newly activated systems restore the ship's defensive shields just in time, protecting the vessel from the lava's deadly flow. Just as the volcano breaks open, the Autobots emerge from the Ark. However, the danger isn't over as Shockwave's Decepticon fleet descends over Earth right before the end of the episode. EarthSpark 2022. With Transformers EarthSpark, the franchise shifts into something refreshingly different, a continuity that blends classic Autobot-Decepticon conflict with a more grounded, family-focused narrative. When Shockwave makes his debut in Season 1, Episode 8, Decoy, he is the same cold intelligence and calculated menace that has always defined his character. The episode revolves around deception and misdirection. By this point in the series, the story is centered around the Molto family and their connection to the Autobots, particularly Bumblebee, as they navigate a world where Transformers are no longer just hidden visitors, but active participants in Earth's future. Autobots like Optimus Prime and Bumblebee are already on Earth, working alongside a human organization called Ghost, which monitors and manages Transformer activity. The Decepticons still exist, but not all of them are willing to let go of the past. Some continue to operate in secret, others pursue their own agendas, and a few begin to question whether the old ways are worth continuing at all. In this series, Shockwave is not at all happy that Megatron is allied with the Autobots and is working with Optimus Prime. Shockwave sees emotion as a flaw and weakness as something to be eliminated. This extends to his view of the Terrans, whom he considers unnatural and inferior. Shockwave effectively rises as one of the leading forces among the Decepticons, continuing the war with renewed intensity. He initially seeks to use the EarthSpark to build a new army and assert dominance over both Cybertron and Earth. However, his ambitions bring him into direct conflict with Megatron, who ultimately defeats and imprisons him in stasis. In a series that emphasizes family and connection, Shockwave becomes the perfect counterbalance, as he represents detachment. Where the heroes are driven by emotion and relationships, he is driven by purely cold logic. Transformers 1 animated movie. Transformers 1 reimagines the origins of the Cybertronian War in a completely fresh, animated continuity. And the best part of all, we finally get to see a younger version of Shockwave, existing before he becomes the cold embodiment of logic fans know so well. The film is set on Cybertron long before Autobots and Decepticons become fully formed factions. Society is structured, hierarchical, and deeply unequal. At the centre of the story are two key figures, Orion Pax, who will become Optimus Prime in the future, and D16, who will become Megatron. In this version, they begin as allies. Much of Cybertron's population exists in lower tiers, cut off from power and even transformation in some versions of the lore. The world feels controlled, as if something beneath the surface isn't quite right with it. As Orion Pax and D16 begin to question the system, they uncover secrets about Cybertron's leadership, its history, and the forces that have kept its people divided. This discovery sets them on a path that will eventually lead to revolution. Unlike other versions, where Shockwave is already fully formed as a Decepticon scientist, Transformers 1 presents him earlier in his timeline. He's intelligent but impatient, aggressive, and prone to irritation, especially when things don't go efficiently. He likes to observe and analyze. As the story progresses, Orion Pax seeks justice, while D16 begins to lean toward power. As the story progresses, tensions on Cybertron escalate. Orion Pax and D16's journey leads them into deeper conflict with the ruling powers of the planet. The illusion of stability begins to break, and the cracks in Cybertron society become impossible to ignore. Rebellions start, and factions begin to form. Ideologies begin to clash, where some advocate for reform and others advocate for overthrow. One of the most interesting aspects of this version of Shockwave is how the film hints at his future as a scientist. While it may not fully explore his experiments, you can see how his approaches towards problems give rise to that identity. Where they see chaos, he sees patterns. At the heart of Transformers 1 is the relationship between Orion Pax and D16. Their bond, their disagreements, and their eventual split form the emotional core of the film. As their paths diverge, one toward becoming Optimus Prime, the other towards becoming Megatron, the entire planet is pulled into their conflict. And as D16 begins to embrace a more ruthless, power-driven ideology, Shockwave shifts his allegiance to D16. In the film's climax, Shockwave participates in the large-scale conflict between Megatron's forces and the newly emerged Optimus Prime. Though he engages in battle, he ultimately loses. After Megatron and his followers are exiled, Shockwave remains loyal, joining him in exile and becoming one of the founding members of the Decepticons. Visually, Transformer 1 leans into a more stylized, animated aesthetic compared to the live-action films, but it uses that style to enhance storytelling rather than simplify it. By placing him in a pre-war Cybertron, the film allows us to see the origins of his philosophy as something that develops naturally from how he interprets the world. And with that, we've explored every major version of Shockwave across the Transformers multiverse. And honestly, what makes him so fascinating is his mind. He's the smartest guy in the Transformers universe, and that makes him dangerous and also fun to watch. Whether he's a cold war machine in Transformers Dark of the Moon, a calculating mastermind in Transformers Cyberverse, a quiet manipulator in Transformers EarthSpark, or a rising mind in Transformers 1, the core idea never really changes. Shockwave is logic taken to its extreme. He embodies pure, ruthless efficiency, because while other villains are driven by rage, ego, or ambition, Shockwave isn't driven by such trivial matters. In some versions, Shockwave is a loyal soldier, but in some versions, he wishes to grab the power, which makes us realize one thing about Shockwave. Once he starts an experiment, he follows it through relentlessly, and maybe that's the most terrifying part about him. Let me know in the comments which version of Shockwave is your favourite. Thanks for sticking till the end. I'll see you at the next one.